Hey friends, Casey Ashmore back in the studio. Just finishing up this series on a little deep dive on the presumption of innocence, what it is, how you can understand it in plain English and what it means and why it's so critical. Again, and it's, this applies in the toughest of situations when a client is facing the deprivation of their liberty and sometimes even their life, and why the presumption is there and why it's so important and why it's so critical. The previous segments we were talking about kind of the evolution of the presumption, the definition, the why, the what, the why, how it came to be, how it evolved, and a lot of that, just brief recap. The starting point is that the accused, no matter what has transpired before the jury sees the accused, that doesn't move the needle on the issue of whether they're innocent or not of the accused crime. Evolved out of ancient law that seemed to have been forgotten during the darker period in our world's history, and then was revived again around the time the Magna Carta, the document that breathed life into what we now call our Constitution. It recognized the rights of men and women for the first time against the government. Rights that cannot be taken away. And one of these rights eventually came to be defined as this presumption of innocence. It was part of our earliest governments here in the colonies, part of our earliest laws in our United States of America, and then incorporated into our body of court rulings, and then our Constitution of the United States of America, and again into the Constitution of the state of Texas. It's such a fundamental right that over 100 years ago, our Supreme Court of the United States of America reiterated that the presumption of innocence is a core principle of our law, of our system of justice in the United States of America. And that is such a critical part of our core justice system that it's got to be considered separate and apart from the burden of proof. And I'll just go through those burdens of proof very quickly, because they within their own component could be part of a whole video series in themselves. But those burdens of proof are reasonable suspicion. Law enforcement officer sees you driving fast, got reasonable suspicion to pull you over, you're speeding, your taillight's out, whatever. Probable cause, it's higher than reasonable suspicion. So think about a step ladder. That's just one step up on the ladder. You're wearing a ski mask at a mall in the summertime. That could be a high crime incident. Why would you wear a ski mask at a mall in the summertime? That's probable cause to stop and investigate whether a crime is taking place or about to take place. The next burden of proof is the civil burden of proof, the preponderance of the evidence burden of proof, which is, in plain English, the greater weight of believable admitted evidence. The sensational O.J. Simpson trial is a good way, especially since it was recently redocumented in a docu-series, I believe on Netflix or one of the major broadcasts, the difference between the burden of proof in the criminal and the civil case. Greater weight of believable admitted evidence. That's all it takes. It's not 51%. It's the greater weight of believable evidence that is admitted to the jury. The next burden of proof is clear and convincing evidence. That's a higher burden of proof. It's usually the burden of proof that the state of Texas and CPS must show to take emergency possession of children in what's known as a CPS case, or for damages that are there to punish parties in civil lawsuits when they've done something that's especially harmful or reckless. Those are called punitive damages. That burden of proof is clear and convincing evidence, such evidence that gives the juror a clear conviction that that burden of proof has been met, a clear conviction that those set of facts meet that burden. And then last, our highest burden of proof, beyond reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. There really is no definition for that anymore. There used to be, but there's not one anymore. It's our highest burden of proof for a reason. And that stands alone, just like the presumption of innocence. At the top of that ladder is that beyond a reasonable doubt. But the playing field is at the beginning, before the jury even considers that ladder of the burdens of proof. Where is that accused standing? On a level playing field with no presumption of guilt. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. More to come about the presumption, and then, of course, the things that are taken away when that presumption is overcome and there's a finding of guilt, and when the presumption is not overcome and there's not a finding of guilt. Please like, subscribe, and share. Leave me a question or comment. I hope you guys like this new video format. Give me some feedback. I love doing these for you. Give me a question or comment on any video platform you watch this, and I'll reply back with a direct video message to you, or both. Thanks again. We'll see you soon from the studio on the presumption of innocence.